Now that's a little loud. I think it's actually my headset. Uh, I'm going to need that visit for my hearing health soon. I walked back in here and I'd apparently adjusted the controls before I walked out to take a quick bathroom break. It's 8:34. We're at 27, looking for a high today of 34. Tomorrow, we told you early in the week, I think on Monday, that it would be in the 50s tomorrow. Then the forecast got revised and it wouldn't be in the 50s tomorrow. That was yesterday's forecast. Today's forecast is that it will actually be in the 50s tomorrow, but it may well rain. Not that we're going to be complaining about that because somebody can use that water down the line at some point. And looks like we're going to have a very, very well, by the time we get to growing season, going to be a lot of water available for people out there. I'm told by some of my coworkers that right now the river is just raging as well, which means there's going to be a lot of irrigation going on and coming up in the spring or so. And joining us in the studio, Dr. Jonathan Tripp, a man of many talents, and in fact, his medical background covers a lot of different bases. And welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Good
Better health,
morning.
better health with Tripp Family Medicine.
That's the plan for today.
And you were not only talking today about life's too short not to feel good, but life's too short to feel or to look good.
Not too short to not to look good.
There
we
you
go.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that we all have to be perfect, but we have a lot of fun at our office with what I call cleanup cosmetics. We're not doing facelifts, but boy, we can take 5 or 10 years off your look, and that's fun. So we'll talk about that a little later. We got a what's called a peel party relating to cosmetic treatments or chemical peels that we're doing at our office February 1st. So that's Thursday, just about 2 Thursdays from now. And so that's one you have to sign up for, pay some money. If you bring friends, you can even get in free. So we'll talk a little more details about that later. But today we are all about men, women, and everybody. And the big focus at first, I just is going to take us to everybody to begin with, and that has to do with influenza virus that's taken our whole country to task.
I've been reading about this that all 50 states now are at an epidemic level. I saw the map online, and CDC actually changed its briefing the other day to talk about this.
Yeah, the it's so big that and we're not well protected. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it. People often say, well, if we're not going to be protected with our influenza vaccine, why even try? Well, let me tell you some of the reasons why to try. And by the way, it's not too late to get that vaccine
Right.
because you are either already exposed, you will be exposed. The CDC says that this is the entire country, and it's not just patches like in the past, and it's the most reported flu virus cases since they started tracking about a dozen years ago. So it's a big deal. And if you go back about 8 or 10 years ago, when we had the swine flu that just really tore up large parts of the country, I was down in the Phoenix area, and we had huge school systems shut down, all kinds of things, and everybody knew about the swine flu. So this year, it's as big, and yet it's not one specific flu. And the catch is the swine flu is an H1N1, which, by the way, is making a comeback this year. But the predominant one is called an H3N2. And this is a virus that does not, shall we say, grow well on like eggs and things like that, because most of our flu vaccines are made egg based. And that's great for the swine flu or others, but not this one this year. But the problem is, it's not the only one, and there's some others that are making a big hit around the U.S. as well.
I was reading about that. In fact, that because it can mutate, and we're also going to see a story I read this morning said we can see multiple. You say we already have multiple strains, but it also says we could have other strains that will come along before the end of the season.
Yeah, in fact, just to kind of be clear, the most predominant strain is this H3N2 throughout the whole U.S. I will tell you in our own office, we are seeing an influenza B. So let me explain a little bit. Influenza has many strains. So when we talk about like the common cold has many viruses that cause the symptoms of the common cold. The flu is a certain type of virus or a family of viruses, and they split them into influenza A and influenza B because of some of their characteristics. But within that A and B category, there are multiple flu viruses. And this particular one this year is not one that responds well to immunizations that are egg derived. And there are some vaccines they're working on that are not egg derived, but they're in our future. They aren't this year. But to be fair for the try that the immunization makers try to do is they take the top four viruses from last year, and that's what's in this year's vaccination. And so we're trying to use the ones that are most predominant or a mutation thereof so that at least you have partial protection. So if you get it, it's not as bad. But this H3N2 is as if you didn't have the immunization. Now, so why would you get an immunization if you haven't got it already? And the answer is because there's multiple out there, and you'll get protection from most of them. And the CDC, or which is called the Centers for Disease Control, tell us we're right now at about the peak. Maybe a week ago, if they're just being hopeful or optimistic. But right now, we're at the peak, which means we started early, it hit hard, and we still got that much more to go. So you still have about 13 to 15 weeks of flu.
More coming up with Dr. Jonathan Tripp. We should point out Dr. Jonathan Tripp's office is located on Fillmore Street in Twin Falls, north side of the city, across from the big post office. And the doctor's office is still looking for new patients. We want to reiterate that.
Absolutely. No, we are still growing. We've grown enough that we pushed our administrative staff across the grass, a patch of grass across from us. So we have kind of an annex now. But
I was talking real estate with the doctor about this very situation last week at the grocery store.
yeah, so if anybody has a 6 or 10,000 square foot building that they'd just like to dump on me, or give will to me, we could use a move to a bigger location. But we are absolutely accepting new patients. We have a fantastic new physician assistant that was here with you last week, um, Lauren Bostrom, and Lauren has just won the hearts of pretty much everybody she's talked to. She is smart, hard worker. Not to say that our boys aren't that way, and I should say our men. I'll call them young men because they're younger than I am. But both Jeremy and Russell, that have been our longstanding physician assistants, very high reputations, very smart. So whoever you see at our clinic, I think you'll feel well taken care of and hopefully welcomed, because it's really fun to have personalities that are warm and welcoming rather than kind of the sterile environment of what I'll call corporate medicine. So there's my plug for our office, and whether it's you got the flu or whether we're going to talk about cosmetic stuff, there's a lot of fun to be had there, and we especially invite little kids because the teenage and preteen and the 6 and 5 and 2-year-old crowd are all playtime for me. I'll just tell you, my theory is the 5-year-olds are at my level of entertainment, and the teenagers, I realize that it's my obligation as a father of teenagers to harass other people's teenagers. So most parents agree with that.
I know
So
that. I remember that well. Uh, we were talking earlier about the flu, and I know you have some other topics to cover too as well. But
yeah.
I had a thought went through my mind. If you get the shot, and maybe so far it hasn't maybe been that effective against most of these strains, but some of these strains, they could because of mutations. Some of these strains could change, and then that shot could be very effective throughout the rest of the season.
Well, and then not even mutation. Additional strains are coming. Now, will they take over the whole country, or will they be in pockets? Like I say, for us, we have a pocket of what's called influenza B, and it has the immunization has helped a great amount. I know I've been exposed to it over and over and over and haven't gotten it. So I'm pretty darn sure that we're covering that particular strain that is heavy in our area.
No cure for it, I guess, but there are ways to ease symptoms, right?
Yeah, and the biggest part is protection. We were talking offline about hand washing and how long the flu virus can hang around on an object, and hours and even sometimes days that you touch that, and then you pretty much eat, rub your eyes, something that you put it in your own body, and that's when you really get it. Or it's in what's called respiratory droplets. In other words, somebody coughs, sneezes, it's in the air, you breathe that air in. So you do want to avoid, sharing it with by coughing. You want to avoid those that are coughing. Um, you want to watch who you're kissing. You know, that's part of the deal.
Hmm.
We had a little fun with a new couple got together recently that they admitted the reason they're sick is, you know, they've had a little bit of little kissing disease going on. So it's a lot of fun to talk about what not to do. But basically, every time you eat, if you will wash your hands just before, there's almost no way you'll get contaminated with a lot of things that cause you nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or the flu, whether that's, you know, the flu is upper respiratory symptoms and lower respiratory, meaning cough and congestion, and body aches is the big key. So let me tell you about that. The flu virus that we are seeing around here is not typical textbook stuff. It does have cough, congestion, and body aches are positive. They're moderate. They're not usually real severe, but if they're real severe, it's an easy call.
Hmm.
But typically, the flu virus in adults has 101 and a half fever or higher, and so it's a cold with a serious fever. But what we're seeing here in Twin Falls is they rarely have a fever, and it takes a little more skill, a little more trying to tease out, is this a cold or is this the flu? And we can test for that in our office in about a 10-minute period, so you don't have to go home without knowing what am I dealing with. So that's my plug for it. What we're seeing here is more subtle than what I've seen in the past.
And you're also saying it's worse among men than women.
Yeah, in fact, this is a great article from Cleveland Clinic talking about man flu. So, women, or there's this media thing that talks about how men are such big wimps and they moan and groan, and whenever they're sick, holy cow, I can't hardly stand to be around them. And boy, have I heard that from, you know, most women in my life, or you know, especially if they're if they're talking about friends of mine or their wives talk about them. They just talk about how the guy is just such a wimp compared to the woman. Well, what's really interesting is the study showed that men to the flu are more susceptible to more severe symptoms. They actually get so severe. I mean, if you take the whole group, men die more often than women from the flu. So there is kind of a genetic predisposition, being a guy, to having worse case of the flu. So, you know, women out there, you might be a little bit sympathetic to the whiner at home because he's got the flu. On the other hand, part of it is these immunizations that we do. The women have a more robust reaction. They have a higher immune system response, so they're likely to be more protected than the men after their immunizations. Now, I don't want to confuse that and say it's no good for men to get immunized. You want all the protection you can get. We talked about hand washing and avoiding, you know, having people cough around you and touching things that are contaminated. But the the truth is, an immunization is the number one thing you can do to try to protect. Uh, and beyond that, it is your own hygiene that you're doing to protect yourself.
Well, when I go shopping, I grab those wipes and I wipe down the handlebar of the cart. But I also know that kids maybe have been riding in it, so I wipe it all around that area. And but then I go in and I start. I like to buy green peppers, for instance, in bulk. So I start checking them all out, picking them up, looking them over. Then I pick up another one.
Just like everybody else did.
Everybody else is done.
So,
And
how do you take care of that?
right,
Well, when you're home, light, a very mild amount of soap, but a little bit of soap and water causes most of everything on the surface to fall off. So it's basically kind of a very light wash to your vegetables, and that's about the best I can tell you. I learned that as a very strong point as I spent time in South America. That you don't chop those up and eat them without washing them off first because you'll regret it.
there could be some bad reactions.
Yep, yep. Mexico, they call it Montezuma's revenge, and so Um, well, so man flu is really an interesting concept because you think it's just subjective, but the truth is they show that it's actually men are more susceptible to more severe symptoms, and so little sympathy for guys once in a while. Okay, for women, we had a topic we wanted to hit about hormone replacement therapy. Since 2002 or 3, there's been a big push to say no hormone replacement therapy. It's all bad all the time. Don't prescribe it for women. And every medical society, I was pretty fresh out of my residency at the time, but I was in Texas, and Texas Medical Society said, stop, do not do this. This is a target for lawyers. You are just asking for trouble. And, it looks like we may be doing more harm than good. Well, over the course of the next 15 years, that's changed a little bit in that they're still saying, well, there may be some small increased risks, meaning the risk is very serious if it happens to you, but they're a low chance, but maybe slightly increased. And so, but there's a lot of things that go really well for women who are around menopausal age, meaning 45 to about 55. If they start hormone replacement therapy, there's no increased risk of any kind of death, whether it's due to cancer, heart attack, uh, or what they call all cause mortality. So that doesn't mean you can't have a small increase in breast cancer or a small increase in uterine cancer. Those are all real. And so if you are on hormone replacement therapy, these you need to have this discussion with your provider about what are your real risks and take into account your family history. But this is a very big shift that women that are having uh, hot flashes and other menopausal mood changes, things like that, that really are making life not too great, that estrogen or progesterone, and I would recommend you consider what's called a bioidentical, meaning it's the same molecule come as your body manufactures. Either one of those may be a great change for your health and your quality of life. And some of the things I would throw out, we talked a little bit about cosmetics earlier. Even integrity of your skin, the thickness of the skin, so the crepiness that shows up with age, that is reduced or reversed somewhat. Things like vaginal dryness definitely is a change if you can have ongoing estrogen. And so this is an area that is good news for women that have symptoms relating to menopause. And probably the single biggest effect is increased or maintained bone density so that you avoid fractures due to osteoporosis. So hormones aren't all bad, but there are some risks, and you need to know what those are before you decide that's the right answer for you.
Yeah, I had a friend. I remember meeting her at a. I went to high school with her, and I was on a parade route visiting one time back home, and ran into her, and we got to chatting, and I mentioned how she had seemed to maintain her youthful look well beyond I think 40. But she said to me, she said, if it wasn't for certain treatments, she said I'd have a mustache thicker than yours. So we have a caller with us, doctor, and
Okay.
it's coming up on 8:54. We're at 27. Caller, you're on the air with Dr. Tripp.
Hey, just a shout out this morning coming down Falls Avenue, everything east of 3400. That road is
All right. Hey,
all slicking.
well, thank you. Thank you for the update. Wanted to point out you do have the Peel Party coming up. We mentioned that earlier in the program.
Yeah, on February 1st, that's I think 2 Thursdays from now, if I might be three. It's pretty close to two, isn't it? I can't keep my calendar straight. This has been the longest week of my year so far. It's only a, what, 2.5 week year so far. But it just feels long this week, I guess. So February 1st, Thursday, it's going to be afternoon and evening. It is a party where you're going to have opportunity for an individual cosmetic consultation. You'll get a chemical peel to the face and a separate chemical peel to the hands. The combination of those two is probably it's close to a $300 value, but that's all part of your $100 participant fee. If you bring three friends, you can come free. But it is fun to have friends. We've done these before, and when you have kind of a small group, there's a lot of fun to be had because you're learning about things that'll actually make a difference. These are not snake oil and mumbo jumbo. This is old, tried and true, safe treatments, and so these are things that I have a lot of experience with, and pretty well can tell you on the spot what you should expect for improvements. These are not facelifts, so I'm not getting into surgery and things like that. But you also get a week later what's called a micro resurfacing treatment. That's another $90 value, but again, a separate cosmetic treatment for smoothing the face, rejuvenating the dermal layer underneath, which the dermis is your foundation. So if you think of a quilt that's wrinkly or beat up, you put more batting material under that quilt and it smooths out, looks a lot better.
Correct.
And we can not only put more batting material in, but we can smooth the surface and make it shiny again. So there's a lot of fun to be had here. So call our office. Let me tell them where. 208 933 4400. That's 208 933 4400. And let them know you want to be part of the peel party and bring a friend. Have some fun with that. So, what am I promising on this? Smoother skin, brighter skin. Oh, depending on your age, 5 or even 10 years younger look in about 3 months to 4 months, but you'll notice changes within 4 weeks. It's an awesome
We got about
program.
30 seconds to go, but you've mentioned before as well that women are obviously they're the people who come to these most often, but men also, can think
Absolutely.
about it.
No, lots of sun damage among men. We can help with some of the precancers, and if we can't do it cosmetically, we have our tried and true medical treatments to take care of precancers and cancers, and it doesn't hurt to look better along the way.
I
So,
know a lot of men that you meet around this area. You can tell those who've been working outdoors a lot.
yeah,
Just that they have that what we call a weathered look.
yep. And so we can reverse a lot of that and have you look younger longer and make your grandkids happy or your wife.
Yeah, well, happy wife, happy life is the
That
old
is the
line.
truth. Bring her.
Yes.
All
Well,
right. Have a great week. And life's too short not to feel good or not to look good. So welcome to Tripp Family Medicine.
we will see the doctor or one of his associates next week between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. In the meantime, 9 o'clock news is on the way from the Fox Radio Network and some updates about a possible government shutdown coming up.